All right, ladies, gentlemen, gamers, welcome back to another review. So, I think it's been about a week now since I finished Darkwood, and now I'm here to give my review, reaction, and opinions on it. So, overall, the main thing I'm going to say is Darkwood is an amazing game. And here's basically why. There's a lot of reasons why. Overall, it was a really great experience for me, and that has to do with the fact that it's pretty different in terms of gameplay from most other scary games that I've personally played and that I've seen that are out there. It has a really good story, and honestly, it just has nice everything else that usually comes with a game, like sound, creativity, level of polish. There's a lot of well appreciated shortcuts and quality of life things that the developer added in that makes it show that not only do they care, but that they spent a lot of time and love into this game. So the first thing that I noticed when playing the game was the camera style. The camera style is very different from a lot of other horror games. Usually in other horror games, it'll sort of be a first person sort of camera style. This one, it's a top down bird's eye view sort of camera style. And initially I thought this would take away from the fear aspect of it, but it really didn't, because the suspense that comes with the game and its gameplay, especially the initial gameplay, transcends a lot of what the camera angle I thought would take away. So the game does a good job of making you feel that this is going to be a tough experience, especially from the beginning, because it literally tells you in the loading screen that this game is unforgiving, it won't hold your hand, and it will basically eat your ass, which is something it does very well a lot of the time. There are a lot of times in this game where it'll try and cock you, either by making you experience a new enemy type when you least expect it, putting you in a bad situation because that's how they designed the game. They put you in a corner and then they spawn like 5 enemies. There's a lot of events that happen that are just kind of unfair. And even then, there's actually events that can happen at night, which is one of the main things of the game, the day-night cycle. At night, you stay in your little cabin, your little hut. There's a lot of different events that can happen, and multiple of them can happen and stack at the same time, and it can be brutal. That's one thing I really like about this game, is it's pretty hard. To give you an example of this, one thing that ended up happening to me was, and this literally ended one of my runs, because on hard mode you have 4 lives, you don't have infinite, and this I believe was my last life, is the lights went off at night, right? Because there's a certain debuff that I got in the upgrade system where I can get ghosts. One of the events that can happen at night are ghost spawn. And if you're in the darkness, if you're not near a light source, certain light sources, the ghosts will kill you. Because the ghosts have to break at least 1 light in your house, every house usually comes with 2 or more lights. But in this specific base I was in, there was only 1 light. So they have to break 1 light. Usually there's another one. In this one, there was only 1. So this light went out, and the ghosts literally just ate my ass. And I didn't have enough healing to fight through it all the way until morning, or I didn't have what I now know I needed, which was a flare, which also keeps them away. I didn't know this. The game doesn't tell you this. With a lot of things in this game, you just have to figure it out. And I didn't know it at the time, and I got cocked, and my entire run went down the toilet. Not to mention, this entire time, regular enemies were also trying to suck my cock at the same time. A lot of the times, this game really isn't fair. And a lot of times, people say it's a bad thing, but look at some of the popular games out there. Dark Souls, that game fucks people and they love it. They eat that shit up. But the good thing about the game is, once you have knowledge, you can conquer almost any situation in this game, because they give you enough tools to overcome everything, as long as you're smart and you're resourceful, which obviously I'm a god at. So the game has really good progression for the most part. I'll have a little negative about this that we'll talk about later, but for the most part, the more you play, the more you understand, and the less your ass will get eaten once you finally realize everything. Once you see the patterns of the enemies, once you understand, okay, these are the resources that I should waste, these are the ones I have a lot of, and then eventually you get more stuff, you get more currency, you can upgrade more stuff, you find more valuable things that you could sell. There's a pretty smooth progression system, and it definitely it doesn't hold your hand, but it eases you into things for the most part, and it gives you a pretty good sense of accomplishment as you go down the line. You realize more and more. It's pretty smooth, especially if you're a gigabrain like me. Now, I'd feel very ashamed if I didn't include this also in the review / opinion. It's that the music is fucking amazing. I'm actually playing it right now in the background instead of the normal Minecraft music because I thought it fit. And why the fuck would we have happy-go-lucky Minecraft music over a scary Dardwood video? So I said, you know what? Fuck it. Let me play the soundtrack. The soundtrack is so fucking good. This shit has no business slapping as hard as it does. And there's moments in the game where they play the right music, it terrifies you. There's moments in the game where it's very calming, like after the day-night cycle in the morning, I was very calmed. I felt like, wow, this is a nice relaxed point now. I know I just got through like an ass fucking, everything is good. And the music definitely helped with that. And then the pause music, oh my god, forget about it. The pause music goes extra hard. It's so good. The music is so good. It helps it be scary, it helps it be calm, it really conveys senses of emotion. It's super fucking good. Music, amazing. The story. The story, like I said, it's pretty interesting, and it's one of the best / worst things about this game, ironically enough. And that's because there are different choices that actually matter. For me, it's a positive and a negative because while it's good to have different choices, the choices I made in the game were bad. And they led to really sad outcomes that I did not like. I didn't like that I did stuff in the game that basically ended in a lot of characters' deaths. I'm trying to think back to how many people I killed. I did 2 playthroughs of the game. I did one hard mode one where, like I said before, it got ended by the ghosts. And then I did another one where I tried to do different things I thought would be better. It just made everything fucking worse, man. So many more people got fucking cocked, and it was so sad. But the thing I will say here is the choices I made in the game actually mattered, and they actually affect the gameplay, which is, like, insane to me. One important thing to note here, right, is that you can replay this game and have a lot of different variety, at least with the story. Not so much with the gameplay. We'll go on to that later on. But the gameplay is pretty much the same through and through, but the story is really good. The main reason you would replay this game is to try different story choices, because you get locked out of different things depending on when you do certain things with certain characters. You have a lot of choices that are clear-cut, a lot of other choices that aren't, and it can be pretty different each time you go around the game. And again, the choices you have actually, or the choices you even make, have a lot of relevance. They lead to different characters doing different things. They can either be friendly to you or hostile, or they could be in different places. They can potentially trade items with you in these places. For instance, in the second area of the game I get to, I didn't do a certain character's questline, and usually they would be in this third area. This is literally their house in the third area, but they weren't there because I didn't do their quest in the second playthrough. In the first playthrough, they went there. In the second one, they didn't because I didn't follow through with what they wanted. So it's very good in that sense. It actually gives you a feeling of like, okay, my choices matter. I actually have to be careful and think about what I do, which is good. It's really good to have that in a game. I was sad by it because I made a lot of wrong choices that made my run a little bit harder, and people eventually fucked with me. The people in this game, they don't fuck around, man. You piss them off, you'll know you pissed them off. They will let you fucking know. But anyway, the story itself is actually really dark and depressing, and it actually gripped me because it really has, at the core of it, a good mystery. You wake up in these woods, and you have no clue what the fuck is going on. It made me want to keep playing to understand what is going on, how the fuck did I get here in the dark woods, and why is everything so fucked? This game is fucked. There's a lot of different, diverse, and sick-looking fucking characters, but even though they're sick-looking, they're interesting. Like I said before, they have multiple routes you can go down, all with interesting story and lore. The negative side to this is, ironically enough, there's a lot you would miss, or you would have to see with multiple playthroughs, because it's very hard and super niche with the choices you would have to make to get favorable outcomes with most of the people. A lot of the time, especially on your first go-around, a lot of the time, when you're making a decision for someone, you're actively fucking someone else in the game. It's not always, but it's most of the time. Since the game doesn't hold your hand through it, there's actually a lot you can naturally miss too if you're just going through the game, not being careful, not exploring everything. A lot of stuff in here is optional, it's not required, But if you do it, it definitely does improve the game, and I think everyone should do it. It makes the game better. If you don't do it, you're kind of just going through the game missing a big portion of the content. And yeah, it's not required, but I would say it pretty much should be for if you're going to play this game. The game's art overall, like I said before, it's really dark, gritty, and sometimes it's even just downright fucking disgusting. A lot of the characters in this shit with the specific art style, I don't know who the artist was, but goddamn, they're fucking good. This game looks scary, it sounds scary, it looks disgusting. It's good. It really does good in its genre. It's not a bad thing here either. These are not bad things. The game wants to be what it is, and it succeeds at it. It makes it memorable, the fact that it's so disgusting and scary and nasty, and it adds to this further strength as a horror game in the genre. It's so unique to see this level of quality in this sort of a game. So even though in this horror game, you can fight back, right? You actively fight the enemies with guns, with melee armaments, shovel and axe that you craft. There's a lot of crafting, there's a lot of fighting. You're going to kill a lot of things are going to kill you. One of the biggest negatives for me, right? This ends up being one of the biggest negatives for me, is that in the beginning, when everything is brand new, or when you first even go to a new area, everything is fresh, everything is scary, and everything is hard. You don't know what can kill you. It's the fear of the unknown, and this game throws some pretty sick shit at you. So it's like, oh, you're not only like, is it unknown, but it's very scary what it could be. The more you go through the game and the more you know and understand, the easier and less scary it gets. Now, this isn't a problem specific to Dardwood. This is just a problem of a lot of horror games, where it gets less scary the more you keep playing. And for me, the game was pretty long, so after a certain point, I really wasn't scared anymore. I was just going through it because I saw every enemy, I knew how to deal with them, and it basically became like clockwork. The scary side of it definitely dies down the more you play it, but again, that's not just with Dardwood, that's with every scary game. You can really take your time with this game too, exploring, and really think about your actions and what you're going to do. So again, it leads to more time in the game, which leads to things being less scary. There's a sort of shock factor, and of course the suspense is always there, but once you really know how to do everything, it's not really that bad. The day-night cycle that's in this game, it works as a mechanism that in my eyes just really slows your ass down. This is another negative. You have to stay in the safe house for a good amount of time every day, where even in the early areas of the game, nothing happens when you stay in these safe houses. You might get attacked, you might not. The enemies that attack you aren't that bad. It's sort of okay and understandable at first in the beginning of the game, because you're still getting used to the game. Obviously, they don't want to, scare the bejesus out of you, even though they do. But, give you really hard enemies, just waves of things at night that you have to, fight, because you can't in the early game. In the early game, they're still trying to lead you into it, which is good. It's not that easy, but it's like there's some nights where nothing happens and I'm literally just standing there because there's nothing really to do at night but defend yourself. You really can't do much else. Now, the level of difficulty that happens when you move safe houses into newer areas later on in the game, it's kind of a big jump, and it caught me off guard and I didn't expect it. If you don't explore and upgrade your workbench, right, this is another reason why you should explore it. You don't have to, but you really should. It'll give you more tools. And, if you don't know how to stockpile your materials well, later in the nights, the game will definitely eat your ass, because eventually you need a lot to be able to defend yourself effectively. Whether it's boarding up windows, boarding up doors, just refilling ammo, repairing the stuff you have, you're eventually going to need a lot. So essentially what I'm saying here is, there's a big jump in difficulty that unless you're really good at the game and you take your time to learn it, you're going to get fucked. Basically, you have to get good. At a certain point, this game is, you have to get good, or else it's going to be too hard. I honestly think that, especially if you play on hard mode. The end of the game, or the late game of the game when you're nearing the end, it feels a little bit like a slog, because if you're trying to explore and kind of progress through the story, at that point, the enemies don't really scare you anymore, and the daytime sometimes is too short for you to really explore and do things, because a lot of things stop you. Oh, there's my alarm going off. A lot of things stop you, and it doesn't feel long enough to where you can really do shit. You have to go back to your house at night. At night, you can't really do anything. You have to just wait till the day, fending off, a lot of enemies, and then you have to repeat the whole process. It felt a little grindy, because again, one of the biggest things about the game is its scare factor, but after that's gone, it kind of just feels a little grindy. But I still stuck with it, though. I still progressed, because the story is just that good. I didn't feel like things were hard anymore by the late game, because again, I have a Giga Brain, and I knew what to do. There was no real threat or issue with any enemies anymore. The resources weren't an issue. I chalk this up to being a god gamer, but, you know, it's still how I felt playing it. I felt the late game kind of got a little weaker on the gameplay side. But that's fine because the story is really good. So, overall, I thought the game is just pretty different than a lot of other games out there. I can't say I've played another game like Dardwood. It's a scary game, but it's different than almost any other scary game because of its camera angle, because of the types of horror it has. You can actually fight back. It's like a survival horror game. It's just really unique, right? Its story is really good. It has the hallmarks of a great game with replayability and actions that matter. You can really tell love went into this game, especially when there's a level of quality and creativity that you don't normally find in many other games that probably costed a lot more to make and had a bigger team behind them. Speaking of this game is actually pretty fucking cheap, which just speaks volumes to how great it is and being affordable in this horrible socioeconomic climate we are in right now in America, where if you're like me and making near minimum wage, you need to starve yourself every fucking day in hopes that you can scrape by long enough to where things will get better, even though I don't think they will. But even with the gameplay becoming like kind of boring by the end and a little too easy for my tastes, and you know the scariness kind of going away, the story still definitely carries it. The story is so good. There's so many interesting characters with storylines that interact with each other. The mystery is a really good thing. Not every question gets answered, and you wouldn't even know if the game just doesn't answer it or if you took the wrong path down to not answer it. The ending was okay. I liked the ending. I don't know if they'll make another game. I think they could. I really liked it. There's different endings too. I don't know which one's canon, but overall, I think, you know, the ending was pretty good. It was pretty decent. There's a lot of stuff that you could do that if you're smart and if you pay attention, even with the ending, there's multiple endings you could do. There's a secret ending. There's a lot of stuff that if you pay attention, if you keep your eyes peeled, you will notice and the game obviously will reward you for. This game is a game for people who can think, who want a challenge, and who can adapt and overcome. Overall, this game was fucking great. I'd give it 9 out of 10 cockwoods. It had some things that were annoying, but overall, even despite the slogginess of the end, it's really good. It's scary at first, and after you get over that, it's just a great story and a great game. Decent gameplay, it's hard, it's fun, it's amazing. If you haven't tried it, I recommend you try it. 9 out of 10 cockwoods. Hope you enjoyed. Eee!